Teresa Holman. You want to be up for the ordinance discussion? John Holman.
I wasn't intending on speaking, but I will. A short one. I guess I'd like to address the conflict of interest thing.
Where are you from?
I'm from Watertown, South Dakota. Yeah, I don't own property in this area or region, but I do own property in Dua County where we are having some of the same issues. As far as the conflict of interest situation, I guess after listening to your state's attorney, and he did a very in-depth report on some of that, I guess my question to the board members would be, do you all feel that you understand all the laws and ordinances involved in these conflict interest situations? Because I don't. And I would say that after listening to your state's attorney, most people probably don't understand it to any great depth. And I would think that would be one reason why you as board members would probably need to take some more time to study these issues. I don't know how you could get around that, because it's very complicated. There's a lot of ordinances, there's a lot of case law that goes either way on this situation. And I know that as far as the state law and the ordinances and constitutional issues, that just from what I've heard tonight and what I've looked at in the past few months, I still don't understand it all. So if you folks think you can make a decision on conflict of interest by what you've heard tonight, and in the next couple hours to come up with a decision on that alone, I think you're doing above and beyond. And I really don't think that it is possible to do that. And a couple other points, just as far as the project itself. The comment was made that Excel, that this is a good deal because it's cheap power that we're getting. I don't know if most people know, we're not getting any power benefits from most of these projects. It's all going out of state. It's not going to affect you. If it affects your power costs at all, it will be raised because we are paying that the tax credits to the wind companies through raised rates on most of the utilities. One more thing about the FAA lighting. The comment from the wind company was that we will adhere to FAA requirements. That's not how it works. The FAA will require that you have lights on the towers. It's up to you folks to mandate if you want the aircraft detection lighting, so you don't have flashing lights all night, which I can't believe anybody would want. So when they made that comment that they will adhere to FAA regulations, that should not be good enough. You guys can dictate if you want the ADL lighting systems, which I highly recommend that you do.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Amy Tuttle just wanted to talk about the ordinance. Okay. Teresa Kaz.
I'll make this pretty quick here. I'm holding a contract here for Dakota Range, which is also Apex. It says no interference, among other things. This is a short form. The lease agreement provides the landowner's activities and any grant of rights landowners makes to any person or entity, whether located on the property or elsewhere. Nancy, this is your contract for Dakota Range 1. It's with Apex. So there is a direct conflict. because even though you're in phase 1, 2, 3, you're still with Apex. Just keep that in mind for the citizens here in Grant County. Thanks.
Dan Cos,
Speaking to the ordinance, please.
to the ordinance. Okay. Al Robish,
Ordinance, please.
ordinance, thank you. Same way with Wayne and Amber Christensen and Wayne Borchek, just to the ordinance
I want to speak.
on this one as well?
Yes, please.
Oh, I'm sorry, I did read all the way. Go ahead.
You can say my whole name if you want.
Amber Christensen.
Thank you so much.
Amber Christensen, Stramberg, South Dakota, rural Stramberg. I have some messy notes here, but concerning Dakota Range 3, they did apply knowing the ordinance was changing. Cottington County had the same thing. Crown Ridge applied under one ordinance. The ordinance was passed and they were approved under the new ordinance, so they can be postponed. I think postponing it is a very important option, and it should be postponed indefinitely until the public health and safety is protected. We, many of us, have submitted many new health studies since the ordinance began. The board should be able to go through those and apply those to the permits that they're reviewing to protect the public. That's why the conditions on the permits should be allowed. The conditions are minimum requirements. I'm looking at the citing on your ordinance, and it says in the table, 1,500 feet, should have been more prepared. 1,500 feet, 5,280 feet. That's what it says. Exactly? No, it says minimum requirements. That's a minimum. So you can go 3/4 of a mile, no problem. If you think that's safe for your people, you have that option. Minimum. Very important. I went to the public hearing, or the public, thank you, in Wilmot. I heard Mark tell the people, he answered a lot of questions. People said, well, I don't want to see them. He said, you don't want to see them? No problem, you just tell us, we'll move them. You don't have to look at them. I hope that they're adhering to that. I hope that you guys can also move turbines, because that's what he promised those people in the hearing. I heard him. They were concerned about ice throw. He said they have heated blades. They put heated blades on them. They'd never have to worry about ice throw. I hope you put that on there as well. I'm not sure if that is part of their thing, but that's what he promised those people. Decommissioning, they let you set decommissioning conditions, so I don't know why one part of the ordinance can have a condition and another one can't. You have every right to change those things. Levi, who's building his house, good for you, Levi. I'm really happy for you. I really honestly am. But I built my house not knowing turbines were coming, and that's not okay with me. They can't put turbines into my property line. I think everybody should be able to do what they want, as long as it doesn't bother their neighbor. Someone else said that they speak for many proponents. I speak for many that are in opposition, who are too afraid to come. Plus 4 o'clock is really inconvenient. Another thing that we've brought up is the larger the turbine, the more infrasound, and I think that's important. And the gentleman who said most people want this project, I think that's great if the majority want that, but you do need to protect those who don't. So I would say you postpone this until your ordinance is finalized, and a moratorium seems to be in order. Thank you.
Tim Lindgren. Ordinance, please. Ordinance. Same with Linda. Lindgren? Thank you. Christy Mogan.
Christy Morgan, Twin Brook, South Dakota. Our county ordinance says in section 103, minimum requirements. The current WES that was published in the paper says at least. I disagree with what Mark said about conditions. Amber nailed that pretty good. The Berg Farm case was right here in Grant County that determined that you must consider the whole ordinance, not just one little section, no little check boxes. You must protect public health and safety. And that was right here in Grant County. Bill Street brought up the Crocker, where they made the setbacks to 3/4 of a mile, and that was using the at least. So, you know, public health and safety, and just what Amber said, there may not be a lot of opposition, but there are a few people out there who don't want this, and they will be losing property rights and health and safety and be at risk. 30% of the people, this was a new report this week, 30% of the people are affected by infrasound. Chris Olson got up here and he gave you advice on health and safety. Chris Olson's not a medical doctor, so I don't know how he could speak to that. The project sound and flicker maps are on guesstimates, so that's not actual. Talking about the money, we all like the money, we do, but guess what? We're getting 10%. The most impacted people are getting 10% of the money. The multinational corporations taking our dollars and shipping them out of our state. The state gets 80%. Maybe we should say no until we get 50% for our community. And the school funds, that's been debunked at the PUC. You guys have been told about that before. It's a Mickey Mouse math situation, and we don't get the money out of the general funds then. So there's a little bit of dollars there, but they mess around with the math. I ask that you really do consider the 2-mile setback with a waiver. You know, these neighbors, they can give a waiver. It's not zoning them out. It's not saying they can't have them in Dakota Range. It is saying that you have to talk to everybody. You have to get an okay to use their property for flicker, wake, infrasound, and all those impacts on their community. That's what that is. We're not saying no turbines. We're saying 2 miles with a waiver. So I ask that you really consider this project and possibly delaying it until we have more direction on the ordinance and this board fully understands the impacts. Thank you.
Thank you. Vince Meyer.
I want to speak on both of them, can I?
Sure can. Well, you want to just talk to the project and then come back to the ordinance?
No, later when that comes up.
Yeah, that's fine.
Vince Meyer, Millbank. I think Mark Riedstrom did a good job of explaining the rules and regulations for y'all. He brought up some really good points that I think a lot of you are going to have to be concerned with as far as backing yourself away from voting on this thing. I think it's pretty serious matters voting on this. It isn't a matter of just passing it. But from what he said, I think there can be some other effects after this if you don't pull yourself off or if you leave yourself on and vote when you shouldn't be voting. Another guy that spoke here before, he did a very good job of explaining, you know, how can you make this decision tonight when it's really not fully debated yet. I mean, you got a lot of people that are disagreeing with it. You got a lot of people that are agreeing with it. I think wind has got its place, but I think the people that aren't for it and the neighbors also have their rights to speak up too. Christy made a good comment here just a minute ago. As far as property rights, we can all get along with this thing. It's just a matter of meeting halfway instead of no, we're not going to do this, we're not going to do that. So I think we need to reconsider a little bit and think of everybody and hear what they got to say and respect each other. I know in the service we were always taught to never leave a body behind or anybody behind, and I think we can use that same thing right here. Think of your neighbor. If he's for it, fine, respect him. If he's against it, respect him too. And if it's too close to him, back off. That's all I got to say.
Thank you, sir. Okay, I'm gonna go back to what I said. I'm not sure, did I miss anybody that had written their name down? There's some that said yes or no on here, but I'm not exactly sure if that meant yes or no they wanted to talk or not, or yes they were in favor or no they were against. So, is there anybody that I did not call their name that signed up that wants to testify in opposition? In opposition on the Dakota Range 3 project. I'm going to ask one more time, is there anybody else that signed up that I missed that wants to speak in opposition? Madam Chair? Oh, is there anybody else that wanted to speak in opposition or in as a proponent on the wind transmission line, the electric feeder line? There wasn't much for comments on that. Most of it was due to the wind energy project, but we were also taking comments on the proposed feeder transmission line, that approximately 8-mile transmission line. Did anybody forget to mention something about that while they're up here talking about something else? If not, Madam Chair,
Yeah, I did.
on the transmission line?
Yes, sir.
Why don't you come up here quick, please? Thank you for remembering.
We had one of these transmission lines put through our property, must be 30 or 35 years ago. We held out towards pretty much to the end of it. And yeah, you do get used to the things, but believe me, they're a headache. They're a real pain when you got a farm around them. Couldn't believe it the first time we went out. My dad went out to work a field and come back. He was dragging part of the digger behind. Totally didn't judge the distance with it. If you think that you can see that big thing and you're going to miss it, well, you might miss it this time. Last year there was a picture in the Aberdeen paper, big 4-wheel drive, took one down. I don't know if he was sleeping in there, if he had an automatic pilot or not, so they're a pain in the neck. And these were put 120 feet from the line, from the fence line. And I thought, what a real brainer there. But they're thinking, because if they want to put another line up, they've got the easement to go over to that line and put 2 lines up. And I think there's a lot of this stuff in the fine print that we're not reading. And it's too bad that they don't point this out to us, that we got to find out the hard way. And then also, you know, pick on the widows and the older people first, because everybody else has signed up for this thing. You're the last one. That's such a recording that's so stupid. But it works, so I guess keep it up and keep shoving it down their throat. Thank you.
Thank you. On the transmission line, sir? Richard Pike, is that right?
You know, that transmission line is already there, and also WAPA is already there, and they went over one another. And I didn't see any problems. And you know, that transmission line is already go for near, and that's when our wind power lines will, or wind power towers will get the power out. I hope you understand that.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, now I need to speak.
All right, last time,
Just one
on the
question.
transmission line,
He says,
Amber Christensen, Stramberg. So they built the transmission line before they got the permit, is he correct in that? Okay. I thought he said the transmission line was already there.
There is a transmission line, it is
Okay,
already
that
there.
was just my question.
We're good. Last call,
I didn't understand. One more?
last call for transmission line testimony.
Transmission line?
Name's Joel Kushrippa from Cottington County. Guy says he has a power pole on his land, and it's in the way. I don't know about you guys, you got rock piles? How many times you have to go around them babies? Don't give me any of this indication of dead land. Most of this ground has got rock piles. Now, if a power pole sits in it that can make you some money, that's a good thing, because that rock pile ain't gonna make you diddly squat. So you guys remember that there, that this is a value-added ag community. And if you're not representing it, then discontinue the process. This is a rule you guys established before these guys came. They accepted your establishment, and this is what they're following. And then you guys want to sit there and change it in the middle. These people had a chance to change this a long time ago, but they didn't. Now they're faced with it. Yes, you can change it. Get this one over with, and then the next project when it comes in, put your rules up. Put your 3/4 mile in. You're fine. But you already accepted the setup for the power poles and everything else prior to that. If it doesn't fit your deal, change it. But you can't change something you've already made the rules for. It's not proper. Thank you.
One last call on transmission. Yes, sir.
Ashley Doonan from Farmington Township, Summit,
How do you spell your last name, Ashley?
D-U-N-N-A-N-N. We have the easement on our property for the feeder transmission line. We're in favor. I think it's a good thing for the community, increase the tax base, good for the schools, good for the state. I realize there's math involved that it affects how the schools are paid on it, but it still is a bump in income for the schools. We live right alongside I-29, and we love being right there. You're right on to go to the town, and the noise is there too, but we never mind it at all. Thank you.
All right, those of you that have not spoken to win, last call, going once, twice, you're out. Madam Chair, we have received testimony in the public, and so where you are at is the time is closing the public hearing and then bringing the applicant up.
All right, I will close the public hearing and call the applicant back up, please, if there is any questions.
Did you have any specific questions that came up in the testimony?
One question that came up, one question that may not have been directly asked, but I am curious about after hearing some comment here is, do you have hammered down where on property power lines will be planned for with regards to this?
Yeah, we, as a matter of fact, the contracts called for, the contracts afforded that availability, the wind contracts, supported structures, and we went ahead and compensated the landowners for that anyway. And when we were planning this line, we had a couple alternative routes that we pre-negotiated with Dakota Range 1 and 2 because we knew we would have to run a feeder line through that project to a substation for this Dakota Range 3, which I mentioned earlier is a completely different entity, a completely different owner than Dakota Range 1 and 2, but I only bring up Dakota Range 1 and 2 from historical perspective. Anything to add, Brenna?
Does your group, and please restate the question for me if you would, do you plan on using heated blades with your towers?
The discussion about moving the turbines and heated blades, it's taken out of context. Amber has mentioned this several times to several different people, and we have a videotape of the whole presentation. And essentially what I said was, if it's a visual impact, that's your issue, then let's talk about visual impacts, because we can much better work with landowners regarding visual impacts than we can